Pretty Little Liars, the TV show, sometimes deals with disturbing and problematic topics. We provide a list of content warnings in the episode description.
Welcome to Dead End. I'm Emily.
I'm Brenton.
And we have 2 new episodes of Pretty Little Liars for you. Season 2, episodes 11 and 12.
Super exciting episodes. We actually got some big stuff happening this week.
We have some big stuff, and Brenton has some thoughts, some ideas. He's got some changes to the roster, if you will.
shook up Theory Corner. This is the biggest week that we've had in a while.
So, new theories are oot and a boot. And, so we just jump right into it?
Yeah, we could jump right in. I actually did want to ask, is this the mid-season finale?
That's a great question. I think so, because the next episode's the Halloween episode.
This is exciting stuff. You have told me about this Halloween episode before.
No, I've told you about the other Halloween episode. I have very few memories of this Halloween episode, but you will. Okay. The hair. The hair and I don't want to give it away, but there's a specific themed costume of a specific pop star that I think multiple people dress up as.
Okay.
It's very of the times, but it's still around now. This is not someone who has faded into the distance.
Okay, got it. Because they're like around that 2010 era.
And it's a lot. The outfits are a lot.
All right, we're looking forward to that next week.
Exactly. But let me confirm for you. Episode 12, season 2 of Pretty Little Liars. This is the mid-season finale. Yep, mid-season finale.
Got it. Okay. Yep. Of course. What a way to lead off. And then the Halloween episode is like a flashback, right?
Yeah, and then you were just abandoned.
Yep. Yeah, that's what we want to confirm. Classic. We're going to give you a bunch of big things happening, and then we'll give you an episode before you get back around on it. Which is much easier now that, we just get to watch it all.
Yeah, you don't have to wait and forget.
No, we just wait a week. All right. Are you ready then?
I'm ready.
Episode 33, I Must Confess. Emily is having trouble sleeping, and we see the clock shows 3:07 a.m. Her phone buzzes, and it's a text, but we don't see what the message is, and she looks concerned and puts it away. Fast forward to 5:15, and Emily gets up from her bed and leaves the room as we see Hannah sleeping. Hannah doesn't stir till a little while after and sees that Emily's gone, looks at her window to see if she can find her, and then immediately calls Emily on her phone, but just hears it buzz in Emily's purse. Arya, Spencer, and Hannah are, a few hours later, have all met up, and Spencer's trying her phone again, but can't reach her. Wait a minute, but she doesn't have her phone. I didn't notice that the first time. Anyway.
Is she doing that?
I thought she was calling to try and find her on the phone.
I thought she was calling other people
to see if she can find her. Yeah, okay. That's the problem in my notes. We then cut away to Emily just running through the woods. And we keep getting it's cut back to Emily running in the woods, cut back to the friends. Hannah mentions that Emily hasn't slept in weeks, and Spencer shows the group, after looking at Emily's phone, of a text from A, and it's a picture of Arya and Fitz kissing. It was the content on the message that she received at 3:07 a.m., and the message says, "Clue Ella in, and I'll let you off." Emily stops running in the woods and just looks around. We then cut to Dr. Sullivan's office as Emily arrives there and tells her she's ready to talk. Dr. Sullivan is just like, well, why don't you come in and join us? And the camera pans to reveal all the friends are inside. During the session, Hannah asks Emily why she didn't wake her up when she left. And Emily is saying that she can't let her friends keep taking the fall for her and helping her. She mentions that she's you don't think that I'm the weak link, and that someone is I don't want to be used as a bowling ball to knock over my friends. Dr. Sullivan then asks who would be doing that, using you as a bowling ball? What does that mean? And Spencer says, somebody has been trying to hurt us for a long time. We then see Toby working on clearing wood out of the Hastings backyard, and then he sees Garrett's muscle car playing music over the side. Toby kind of slowly approaches and sees that Jenna is sitting alone eating cherries. Garrett then leaves out of Jason's house, and Toby watches him from a safe position, kind of like around the tree. As Garrett gets into the car, he sees Garrett and Jenna kiss. Dr. Sullivan talks to all the friends and asks when the text began. The friends say they thought the texts were all from Allison. Dr. Sullivan asks if they have any idea who this A is. They all say no. The friends all mention that A is really good at making people look guilty and is always on them. Dr. Sullivan clarifies if she is the first person that they've all told and asks why they waited so long to say something. We then cut to the school as Jenna is at a lunch table alone, and the camera pans to the friends all sitting at an adjacent table. Hannah asks if they should have mentioned Jenna to Dr. Sullivan. The friends all agree that if they had said something, then they would have had to tell Dr. Sullivan about the entire summer. Spencer gives Hannah... We then drop this for the time being, as Spencer gives Hannah books on horses to gift to Kate to try and bury the hatchet. Arya asks why she's even doing this, and Hannah mentions it's actually really for my dad. Like, I want to make things right there. They all then see that Jenna is on the phone, and Emily asks if they think she's the one who sent her the picture of Ezria. Spencer thinks yes, but Arya says she has no motive to do this. Suddenly then Hannah's grandma approaches the table and mentions, just kind of tears Hannah down a little bit. It's like, oh, you're eating a salad. I've never seen you eat something green before. Hannah then asks why she's here, and Granny says, oh, for the dinner. She then ushers Hannah along to help get something from her car. Spencer then notices that Jenna is talking quietly on the phone. Emily wonders if they should have gone straight to the police. Emily's immediate response every single time: should we have gone to the police? We should have gone to the police. And then Spencer says, well, they have to do this twice too. Spencer's like, no, not with Garrett on the force and connected to Jenna and things. Uh-huh. They reiterate this in next episode.
Uh-huh.
Byron and Ella are in the kitchen, and Byron is angry that Mike isn't better yet, and is mad that he's not seeing a therapist, someone that could prescribe him medications, and
he's seeing a therapist. He's not seeing a psychiatrist.
Thank you. I always get those confused. That he's seeing a therapist, not a psychiatrist. That he could be prescribed medication. Ella mentions this is not your brother, and then Byron's like, well, he's related to him. Ella says he needs to talk about his...
So are you cuckoo banana pants?
Exactly.
I just it's such a poor... Sorry, I know we'll talk about this later, but it's such a weird take on mental health, instead of just being we could have normal conversations around mental health and not villainize medication.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's there's that interpretation. It's just I don't want them hopped up on pills.
Yeah, or it's it's okay for other... She literally says something it's okay for other kids, but not for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
let's not make
let's not.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
What does that mean? What is that saying about the kids who take medication?
Right. Completely.
It's so bad.
To make Ella the she's not the bad guy, but in this sense, it's she's absolutely wrong.
No, she's absolutely
this could have
wrong.
Totally. If it does turn out that Mike has a mental illness, medication could totally help him.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so that's why I was
yeah,
just nip that one in the bud.
Nope, but we put it on Byron, and he's trying to shove pills down Mike's throat. Yeah, Ella says he needs to talk about his feelings and not jump to pills. They argue as Arya comes in, and then things get all awkward and silent. And Arya's like, oh, what's wrong? And Byron tries to brush it off and leave. Ella then says Mike's situation is not a secret, and says that her and Byron just had a difference of opinion, Arya. Byron says, I'm not taking the fall for this, and leaves. Hannah talks to Caleb on the phone happily, but has to switch over to talk to her dad. She's at home, and her grandma watches in the kitchen. She's on her phone. Turns out that Tom wants Hannah and Kate to do the toast at the dinner. I just, from here on forward, I call her Granny. Granny asks, much easier for my notes. Granny asks why he's, Hannah thinks, why is he tying the knot with this woman? Hannah says, well, he loves Isabel. And Hannah's like, well, like Mom says, like he deserves to be happy. Granny says cows are happy. They eat sloppy joes. I lost my... Ashley comes in and Granny greets her. Granny says that Hannah should like skip the dinner. Like, what do you think, Ashley? I don't think like she should go to this at all. She's like, Tom is waiting for you, Ashley, to just take him back. You need to fight for your man. Ashley says, our marriage ended a long time ago, and I'd appreciate you not doing this, and then walks away. Granny then turns to Hannah and asks, are you lying to yourself too? Wild. So once I piece together that this is Tom's mom, I understand a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
It's still not right. But I understand a little bit more that it's just like,
yeah, it's Tom's mom.
Exactly. Like, oh God, Tom, you threw away Ashley. Arya goes to talk to Mike, and he tries to shoo her away. Arya says he needs to let somebody. Yeah, he's like also on his computer, like chatting, supposedly like talking to someone. And Arya's like, you need to let someone in, and not this random stranger online that you're talking to. Ella then comes in and is just like, hey, shut the laptop, come downstairs for dinner, and Mike refuses. She goes to then grab the laptop, and they struggle back and forth, and then finally, like, he lets go or loses grip, and Ella, like, and the laptop get thrown into the dresser. Mike then rushes off and closes the bathroom door, and Ella then turns to Arya and says, this didn't happen. Your father can't know about this. I tripped and fell down the stairs. Ella. Spencer and Toby pull up in Toby's truck. Toby says, hey, maybe NAT is back in session. Spencer asks if Jenna is their mascot. She could be a member. Toby says, you know what? I can figure this out and I can investigate. Spencer's like, back off. Don't give them a reason to try and break this up. Getting ahead of myself. But Toby says, not going to happen. And they kiss as Spencer goes to school. Not happy with next episode. Dr. Sullivan speaks to the high school students at Rosewood about the pressures of being young.
The pressures of being young?
Direct quote from my notes.
Not college or
no, just like
school.
It's all encompassed. Yes, she touches on some of those things, like that many of them don't feel safe, and that there are bullies all around, and like bullies have been around since cavemen, and bullies now have more advanced ways to attack. It's like with just the click of a button or the push of a text, to be able to like attack people. Dr. Sullivan then says all it takes is for people to stand up to them.
We also got like close-ups in this scene of Noel Khan,
Jenna,
yes. Just like random, and
and Mona going boring, like mouthing. Is there anybody else? No,
besides the girls looking uncomfortable. I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like they gave us all of our friends that are in school.
Right, friends.
Our friends.
As they leave, Hannah is mad about the talk.
You know who I didn't see there? Sean.
Even they forgot about Sean.
He's not real. He doesn't exist. Who was Sean?
I don't remember Sean from season 1. Hannah just went straight to Caleb.
Literally, that's what my brain does. It goes, Sean was there for like 2 episodes.
Sean who?
Yeah.
Hannah is mad about the talk and says like, oh, this is going to make things worse. She literally just put a target on her backs. The friends all disagree since they haven't heard from A. Like, there's nothing coming through. Arya then notices her mom, and they exchange sad glances. Jenna then walks through the student crowd like Moses parting the Red Sea. And Arya tries to move away, says like, oh, I gotta go. But then Jenna hears her and is like, Arya, like, wait right there. She's like, I wonder if you heard Dr. Sullivan's speech. And it doesn't seem a little too late. Since like she totally missed when your friend Allie was roaming the halls. Emily says it takes one bully to know one, and is like, move your stick. People are trying to walk. And the friends all leave.
Emily became a bully.
I know. You were right. Emily being done is a treasure.
Emily being done is the best part of the show. When everyone else is like at a loss, it's the only time Emily comes through.
Absolutely.
Emily is only good in a crisis.
Pretty much. Otherwise, she's floundering.
She is just absolutely lost if you give her time to think.
Exactly. Tom introduces Granny to people at the dinner. Hannah sits with Kate as Kate looks at the horse books. Hannah's like, do you like them? I wanted to kind of bury the hatchet. And Kate's like, I do. And Hannah's like, I feel really bad. And Kate says, like, I'm not proud about what I said on the phone either. Hannah asks if they can start over. And Kate says, things are different now. I've got like Tom like in our house now. Like, we can move on. Tom walks over after his mom embarrasses him to check on the two of them. And, they're getting along. Kate asks if Hannah wants to see the wedding dress and pulls it out and shows her. Kate is then like, all right, Hannah, like, get over here. We got to write the wedding speech. And
I think it's just like the toast at the rehearsal dinner.
Yeah. That's what it is, not wedding speech. Kate then pulls out as they sit down to write, Kate pulls out a water bottle full of vodka and pours in her drink. And is like, hey, do you want some, Hannah? And Hannah at first refuses, but then Kate talks about like, oh, give you a little bit of liquid courage. And Hannah's like, yeah, sure, why not? Emily walks downstairs to Ashley alone in the kitchen. Ashley is like, oh, didn't know you're home. Are you hungry? And Emily's like, sure. Like, do you want company? And Ashley says yes. Dr. Sullivan leaves her office and gets a phone call. And it's the audio that repeats over and over. And I'm the first person you told about this. She even hangs up once, and it calls back, and it's the same exact message playing over, picked up right where she left off. We then cut to the police at her office, discussing bugs being potentially in the office. Garrett comes in and asks if the client she was seeing potentially did it. She says no. Garrett's like, well, if you give us their names, like, we could maybe, like, figure out who did this. Dr. Sullivan's like, no, this is the second time I've called you in. That's like doctor-patient, like, confidentiality. I can't do that. Like, things are happening around this office, like, that need to be investigated. Garrett's like, well, if you can't give us their names, there's nothing we can do. And they leave.
Because they're useless.
Absolutely useless.
You know what Pretty Little Liars taught me? And I'll say it from the beginning. Cops, useless.
Absolutely.
Useless.
And we even bring back the most useless cop in the next episode.
Mm-hmm. I'll be interested to see how, as it carries on, how that plays out.
And like with your memories of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're mostly useless.
Right. Totally. No, I mean, they're completely useless in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Kate and Hannah work on the speech. Kate asks who Hannah's texting with, and Hannah shows off like Caleb on her phone. Kate thinks he's cute and is like, oh, does he have brothers? Kate then freaks out when her uncle Lloyd comes in and is like, oh, just drink your drink. And like, just pretend like he's walking by, just down your drink. And then as he walks by, she's like, oh, okay, false alarm. I thought this was going to be something completely different. But now it's finally clicking in my head. It's like, oh, she just wanted to get her to drink.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So glad I remembered that before I like dived into my other close read on absolutely nothing. I was like, what's going on with her uncle?
Nothing.
Exactly. It's probably not even her uncle. Emily asks Ashley why Granny is staying with them. And Ashley's like, believe it or not, we like each other a lot. And she probably likes me more than her own son. Emily says, it must be weird to know that the person you married is marrying someone else. And Ashley's like, yeah, it's new territory. Ashley's like, hey, where's Samara? And Emily's like, well, it didn't work out. Ashley asks if it's beyond repair. And Emily's like, well, there's just like a lot of like hanging questions. And Ashley's like, I hate to admit it, but if Tom hadn't come back into town, I wouldn't have had a lot of my questions answered. Sometimes we make up the other person's responses in our head, even if they're not there. Ashley then thanks Emily for keeping her company, and wishes her goodnight. Emily then grabs her phone and goes to text someone. Byron comes home and sees Arya. Arya mentions that Ella's in the shower. Byron says, hey, don't be so unforgiving to your brother. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on that you don't know. Arya's like, yeah, and more that I wish I didn't. Ella then comes down and Byron's like, oh, how's your wrist doing? Like, we should totally get that x-rayed. Ella brushes it off as Arya is like, I'm going to go upstairs. Emily is at dinner at the grill, I'm assuming. And we get the back of someone's head as they walk in, and it turns out it's Maya come to eat with her.
You didn't have this guess on Maya coming back, did you? Mid-season too?
No, definitely not. Mine was like fully season 1, and then she didn't come back, and I was like, well, sometime in the future.
You'll never see me again.
Totally, like past season 2.
Mm-hmm.
Toby and Spencer make out in Toby's truck. They're near outside of her house, I assume, because Toby looks over her shoulder to see Jason's house, and they stop kissing, and he's like, I thought I saw a shadow in Jason's upstairs window watching us. Spencer freaks out a bit, but Toby's like, never mind, no, there's no one there. And they continue. They continue to make out, and then Spencer looks up and is like, no, there's 2 shadows up there. Spencer's like, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if Jenna is up there right now, too, and the whole club is filming us, like those freaks. And Toby, and then she's like, I'm going to get out. Like, like, just like Dr. Sullivan's advice, we need to, like, take on these bullies. Toby goes to stop her, but Spencer makes it all the way to the front door, which opens to reveal her father. Peter. Spencer asks what he's doing there. Peter says, we were just upstairs talking about his fence.
Just upstairs with Jason, no big deal. NBD.
We're just talking about fence stuff, guys.
Boys and their fences.
Spencer stops him, and Peter says, like, it stops him and continues to pester him, and Peter's like, you could stop this, okay? Spencer's like, why are you having secret meetings first with his mom and now, like, first with Allie's mom and now Allie's brother? Peter's like, I don't have to answer that. And Toby says, no, you kind of do. Peter's like, hey, well, if you keep it up, you'll be looking for a job. And Toby's like, well, Spencer deserves answers. Peter then blows up and is just like, you're just here to stir up trouble and it's none of your damn business. And like gets in his face, and Spencer goes to break up the 2 of them. And Peter tries to tell her to like, go to the house, like go home. And they both turn and leave, but they get in Toby's truck and drive away. And Peter like yells at her again and like bangs on like the car door.
Which is weird because it's like an old car. So like, that's like just hard steel.
Peter's not in his right mind.
Is Peter ever in his right mind?
I don't think so. Have yet to see it. Dr. Sullivan looks through her files and then looks out her window looking a little frightened. We get a street shot of a hooded figure as they walk up. Maya, back to the dinner with Emily. Maya says she's been back for 2 weeks, and her parents now live in some town that I missed the name of that is 4 or 5 minutes away. Emily updates her on her parents' move, and Maya jokes like, oh wow, like they really like trust you now. Like, oh no, like your mom's not like that. Like she must be putting bugs everywhere. And Emily's like, no, my mom's not like that anymore. She's really come around on me being myself. Maya says, wow, a lot really has gone down since I've been gone. Maya's then like, hey, what like made you decide to like reach out? And Emily's like, well, I wasn't in a good space back then. There was people I was afraid of. Maya says like, yes, I know, I was one of them. And Emily said like agrees and says, but I'm not afraid anymore, like to make real plans. Maya's then like, whoa, like let's slow down. Like this is all good. And like, but let's take it easy a little bit. And they embrace hands at the table. This is me being mean, but I put Mike looks constipated in his room. Arya walks over to check on him. He turns around teary-eyed and asks if mom's going to be okay. Arya's like, yeah, she's going to be fine. Mike then asks her if he is, and Arya says yes, and they hug. Hannah and Kate enter the giant women's restroom at whatever venue this is. Hannah is like definitely drunk and says she was like so worried about tonight, but you know what? She's having fun. But Hannah also starts to realize just how drunk she is. Kate mentions like how much she likes the wedding dress and like, like it would look good on me, but I think it would actually look much better on you, Hannah. Hannah's just like, we should totally get some pizza. And Kate says, yes, let me go get it. Hannah then washes her hands and goes to look at the wedding dress and picks it up and plays around with it and looks in the mirror.
Spins in a circle.
She gives herself the spins and falls down onto the ottoman and vomits directly on the dress. Kate then walks back in, sees her, smiles, and leaves. Spencer sneaks back into her house, but Peter is still up. Peter asks if she remembers, Allison's grandmother, and that she died soon after Allison disappeared. You see, the De Laurentises needed an attorney because she had a lot of money, and apparently a week before Allison went missing, the will was amended to cut Jason out of it. Jason's parents then begged Peter to update the will's date, roll it back to before any of that happened. They didn't want Jason to look like the number one suspect. Spencer then has a flashback. Allison is hanging with Hannah, Spencer, Ashley, and Granny in the kitchen. Allison asks, really weirdly, I will note, if Granny had any favorite children, and if you would you disown any of your children? Granny says, no, I don't have parents, and wouldn't do that. Allison asks, what would it take for you to cut the cord? And what if they were selling a family heirloom to buy drugs? Granny says, well, if there was someone that deranged, then yes. She asks, Allison, are you writing a story or something? And Allison's like, yes, something like that. Back to the present. Spencer says that's why Allison went down to Georgia to get her to change the will. Allison must have rubbed it in Jason's face, and that's why he killed her. And Peter's like, whoa, what? You need to be careful, what you're saying right now. Spencer's like, we need to go to the police. Peter says, no, we were never going to go to the police, ever. Don't do this. Spencer says, why are you protecting Jason? Peter's like, I'm not protecting Jason, I'm protecting myself. Spencer says, no, why are you protecting them? What does the De Laurentiis family have on us? Peter says, I think I've answered enough questions for one night.
Objection, Your Honor.
Yep, totally. Dr. Sullivan looks through the girl's files and is making all these kind of notes. She then pulls one out marked with red ink, but a sticky note covering the name. The notes include overpowering feelings of revenge and anger management. She then even circles a part in the typed up notes that says nosy bitches, which resembles the same thing that was written on her wall when it was broken into a few episodes back. Dr. Sullivan then says, my God, I know who this person is. Or I know this person. She does a better line reading.
It's okay. You didn't go at any acting classes, honey.
No, I didn't.
You're doing the best you can.
Thank you. Hannah is trying to clean up the wedding dress as Tom walks in to check on her. Hannah does a bad job covering it up. When Tom realizes what's happened, he gets mad and mentions, he's like, I can't believe you're drunk. And Hannah's like, I was drinking with Kate. And it's like, Kate is poised out there and not drunk, and she just gave a speech alone. Granny then comes in and tries to protect Hannah, but he continues to lay into her. Tom asks, did you do this on purpose to stop the wedding? And Granny says, well, she should have waited. I would have waited and just hurled on the bride. Tom says, I'm going to say goodbye for you, Hannah. Arya comes, comes down to her parents to tell them that Mike, has actually broken into more than one house. And I've known about it for a while. Arya's like, I'm tired of keeping secrets. I just want everything out in the open. Mike then starts to descend the stairs as the parents stand up and the family greets him. I left that off in a weird place.
I was like, and then?
And then what? Hannah and Granny discuss the dress and how it really, can't be cleaned. Kate walks in and is like, oh, I thought you were alone, Hannah. But, I just wanted to come in and give you this ginger ale. Granny asks, oh, really? Is that what sobered you up so fast? She then grabs her purse and dumps out her purse, which has 2 water bottles in it. Granny sniffs both of them and is like, one had water, one had vodka. And is like, oh, Hannah, you had the entire bar to yourself. Hannah, then, incensed, promises Kate that she'll be in a world of pain. Maya and Emily continue to catch up. Maya reacts to Emily dating Paige and is just like, you still dated her after she tried to drown you?
To which all of us said, yeah.
Yes. She's been lost, Maya.
You left and Emily just tumbled.
She found someone okay after that. Emily then gets a call from Dr. Sullivan. Dr. Sullivan is like, get all the girls together and come to my house ASAP.
Come to my office.
Sorry, they go to the house next episode. Office ASAP because I know who A is. We then get cuts to all the girls getting texts, and they're reunited at Dr. Sullivan's office. They enter, but she's not around at all. And like they call out for her. The friends all wonder where she is when they suddenly get a text from A that says the doctor is out. We then see a gloved hand moving around Dr. Sullivan's office, backing up files. The gloved hand then picks up this Freud bobblehead that says the doctor is in and removes a wire. The end.
All right. What are Jenna and Garrett up to at Jason's house?
I know. Yeah. I mean, it's got to be something to do with like their like shared past and like NAT, but I think they're also just trying to keep an eye on Jason to make sure he's not doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about like when they're like outside the house.
Yeah.
When we
Toby
don't get any.
them.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they're on a. Oh wait, no, they're not on a stakeout because Garrett comes
in the house.
Yeah, comes out of the house. Yeah, I think they're like pretty much like keeping Jason in line and trying to like make him like dig something up or do something.
Got it. Okay.
But I don't know, what yet. And it's kind of weird because we get like next episode. Not to jump ahead, but they talk about like the storage locker. So I don't really quite know what they're at.
What's gonna happen with Maya? Do you want to save that for later?
I do have a new theory around Maya.
Okay.
Especially, we'll come back around to this in Theory Corner. Stay tuned for the end of the episode. A little tease for you. But the way they framed the shot is like a big reason why I jumped on this of Emily on the phone with Dr. Sullivan, and you can see Maya kind of like watching her like in the fuzzy in the background.
Okay.
In the fuzzy, out of focus.
Okay. Toby versus Mr. Hastings.
Yeah, but exactly. It's so good. I wanted to stand up and cheer. It's like, hell yeah. Toby's just like, no, I think she does need answers. It immediately gets in her face. The best part about Toby is that he'll always like, he never backs down. He always stands up. And especially for Spencer, he's just like, nope. You definitely do know her answers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Toby's just a golden boy.
Mm-hmm. Don't cry, honey.
Fearless.
It's okay.
I love him so much. But yeah, no. 3 cheers for Toby, like stopping Peter there.
Love it. Okay, so go ahead. Oh, no.
You continue
on. What was Mr. Hastings doing at Jason's house? And is he telling the truth?
He's not telling the whole truth. We will get to what I think the rest of the truth is in the next episode.
Okay.
But I do think he's at least telling the truth about like what he did for Jason with the will. He is actually trying to protect Jason though. Also,
why?
Why is he trying to protect Jason? Because of things we'll talk to in the next episode.
Okay.
But he is, and I think there is that self-preservation too. For like, because obviously he altered the will so that Jason's still in it. Like back to that original version. But he has a more vested interest in wanting to keep Jason out. And I think he did, because Jason did get the money. So then that's how he was able to buy the house. So I think that all did come to pass.
Got it. Okay.
But yeah, this is merely a precursor for the more juicy details we get next episode.
And then what the De Laurentiis family has on the Hastings, you want to save that for then too?
Yeah. I didn't realize, I guess, like now that we're like doing these back to back, like how much this episode is seeding
set up
all the stuff for next episode. Even if those are still like mysteries left hanging in the air, like those kind of threads. It's it's literally just set up for like a lot of the payoff that's coming in next episode.
What did A do to Dr. Sullivan?
Oh, like in that episode?
Yeah.
I think I can't tell if it's like A has something on Dr. Sullivan that is just like come with me or this gets out, because that seems in line with A.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we get the last scene in the next episode of A handing something off to Dr. Sullivan, I think that's like, here's your evidence back. I don't think she's like A is paying Dr. Sullivan.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I think happened is just like, I have this thing above you and you will do what I want, because that's in line with how A operates with the girls. So I think it'd be the same thing for Dr. Sullivan, or whatever the hell that might be.
Got it. Okay. That's really my only questions on this episode, because I think the next one's a little juicier.
Yes, definitely. I'm trying to think if there's any other thoughts that I had. Oh my God, but just seeing from a million miles away where the Hannah Kate thing was going.
Mm-hmm.
So just like, oh God,
I don't like to focus on that.
Yep. Mm-hmm. It was just like, this is fun.
It's horrible. That whole plot point is horrible.
Yeah, I wasn't happy about it. And like the introduction of Granny coming in there. I do think she's pretty fun.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't write down a lot of the pithy remarks she has, but she has most of the laugh lines in the episode.
She took Hannah's funny bits, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else kind of like pulling at my brain on this one. No, I think we're kind of ready. I think a lot of it is resolved in the next one if we jump ahead.
Yes.
But I do think this is a good episode. Not to
it's a good, and you need to set it up for the next one. You have to have a good setup to have good payout.
And it's like kind of funny that like the way we structure this, it's like, oh yeah, well of course it's gonna be like on the next episode.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if we were ready to jump into episode 34, then
or season 2, episode 12, the mid-season finale.
That's right. Over my dead body, we see the girls minus Emily. Fantastic. Love. I will say, like, starting at like a point like in the future where you don't know like what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that this is all tidily resolved within the episode as well.
Mm-hmm.
We see the girls minus Emily covered in dirt sitting in a police interrogation room. Garrett speaks to someone on the other side of the two-way mirror and says they've been like that since we brought them in. And there's a promotion in this for you if you for doing this. And you were right all along. They were guilty, and now we can prove it. The person he was talking to then walks into the room, and we see it's our favorite offender, Wildon, who says, "Hey, did you miss me? Homicide is illegal in the state of PA, and you are going down."
Like, isn't a homicide illegal everywhere?
Even better that they don't give him a cool line because he's a shithead. The friends are another person that like I really should have been like, well, of course he's gonna come back.
Oh yeah, Wildon is a part of Pretty Little Liars.
Mm-hmm.
He's the heart of Pretty Little Liars.
No,
I'm kidding. We'll have to think through after this too of all the characters that are currently missing and if they'll come back.
Oh yes, I have a theory on one.
Who?
Lucas, but it's not like.
Well,
a
he was
one.
shown. He was shown in the last episode when they were doing the bully speech.
Oh, was he?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. He's and I'll spoil a little theory corner on him early because like it's just I'm always afraid that it's gonna be the she bullied me and like you like all treated me horribly and walked the school. Is that's gonna be the reveal and I'm gonna be upset about it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think you'll like where it's going.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Give me a little boost. The friends are outside Dr. Sullivan's house looking for her. Emily calls her again, but catches her voicemail, which says she is out of town on an emergency. We then see a title card come up that says it's 12 hours earlier. Spencer says she didn't come home last night either because yesterday's paper is still out here. Emily says we should call the police. And they once again answer, no, we can't. Garrett works there. Spencer says the last time someone thought they knew who A was, they got hit by a car. Sorry, Hannah. Hannah's in like, yeah. Emily's phone rings and is happy that it's Maya, and all the friends are like, ooh, how exciting. Back at Hannah's house, Hannah is like talking Maya's ear off, asking how camp was and like all sorts of things. What is it like? Super like Christian-y? They make you sing like Kumbaya. Emily is then like, hey, like, can you like leave us alone for a little while? We haven't had a chance to catch up. And Hannah eventually gets the hint and leaves. Maya says, hey, I don't know this current Emily. So like I want to take our time catching up so I do get to know her. And Emily is like, if Emily agrees, it's like this, like Emily will totally like you. Maya says, I'm glad you called me, but like I should have called you first. Emily says, yes, but I forgive you. Toby gets off the phone and it's like, oh man, it turns out like my brake line was severed and like the fluids were crazy low. Must have backed over something weird. Oh well. Toby, you really gotta some self-preservation here. Toby asks, then like, him and Spencer cuddle up and he's like, what would our baby look like? And Spencer's just like, well, it'd have a six-pack. They then see Jason taking down the newspaper clippings that he had pasted up on his windows, as Spencer shuts the blinds. Toby says, hey, did your dad like say anything else? And Spencer's like, no, he didn't. He didn't say anything like else about what he was doing there. Toby says, like, I know you. You always get answers. Like, and Spencer's like, well, my dad said no, so like I didn't. So can you stop already? She then apologizes to Toby. She's like, I'm sorry, but like, sometimes like we just don't have a choice. It's my dad. Toby says, we always have a choice. Dead on every time. Hannah tries to call Dr. Sullivan again, but it hits her voicemail again, and it says that it's full. Her doorbell then rings, and she answers it to Caleb arriving back. Just take my gripes from a previous episode and just, like, remove it, because, like, I didn't know he'd be gone for 2 episodes. Like, not even. That was just last week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's back.
Yeah, he's just back.
He just went to go visit his mom in Montecito, honey. He came back.
I know. It was just so funny, because it was just, like, this big deal, so I was just like, oh, he's, like, gone for, like, a season. Nope.
He's not Maya.
Exactly. He's much more important. Hannah thanks him for coming back. And Caleb is like, hey, like, what's wrong? And Hannah divulges all about the Kate situation and the wedding stuff. And then Caleb is like, whoa, calm down. It'll be all right. And they kiss. Fitz reads a paper in his office as Jackie comes in with coffee. She says, this reminds me of old times seeing you like that. She's like, well, I just saw your car in the lot and thought you needed a coffee break. Arya goes to walk in with coffee, but sees them together and stops and turns back around. Jackie's like, says, hey, reading your poems, like, again, made me realize why I was in love with you in the first place. Fitz is like, well, I'm seeing someone. Jackie says, oh, okay, I get it. Like, but like, I wonder what it'd be like if like we were still single. He's like, well, I'm not. And she's like, okay, cheers to moving on. Arya then walks away and sets down her coffee to dig out her phone out of her purse, but then suddenly sees a text with Dr. Sullivan's picture that's as she's holding today's newspaper, we assume, and the message says, she's still alive. 10, we then get on the next scene, we then get another title card that says 10 hours earlier. And the friends are all gathered around a crate that says, open or she'll die. Hannah says, I didn't say anything, but Dr. Sullivan, like, really helped me. Spencer's like, yeah, that's why we all trusted her. She, like, helped us all. So, it did happen off screen. They open up the box to a cutout note that says, it's like the like ransom notes where it's, like, cut out of, like, magazine clippings. You have...
But, like, very big letters.
Very big letters. You have until 7 p.m. to save her, and these are my demands. The box, we then see in the box that it has 3 dolls inside, and they all have, like, they're like the type of dolls with pull strings. There's a bundle of notes also in there, like a stack of papers. Arya then realizes that one is Jackie's paper. And then Spencer notices that the other is an article, And they look at it both, and they realize that Jackie directly plagiarized from the other article. Hannah picks up the doll and pulls on the string, and it says, "Stop the wedding." Spencer then pulls on her doll, and it's like, "Keep Toby safe." Emily realizes, like, "Hey, I didn't get one." And Spencer's like, "Well, it's probably just because, like, A's been targeting you a lot." They discuss how they're supposed to do these things to get Dr. Sullivan back. Spencer says, "You know what? A is just being our ultimate frenemy, getting what we want, but if we do it, all hell breaks loose." Arya says, "If I do this, Fitz may never forgive me." Spencer says, "Well, you know, time's ticking." And seeing A push Ian off that bell tower, it seemed easy to them. Spencer says she knows like how to keep Toby safe. Keep him away from me. No.
Just don't tell him anything.
Awful.
Just keep your mouth shut.
You could totally loop in Toby too. Mm-hmm. Hey, or does Toby know about? Toby knows about A, right? No, right? I forgot about that. Okay. Well, no time like the present. We then cut back to the police station in the future, and Arya stands up and it's just like, "I would actually like to make my phone call now." Garrett is talking to his police chief and says that their report is also missing page 5. And the police chief is like, "Well, what was on it?" And it was like, "Well, it was the analysis of trace evidence on the body, and now every record is gone." The police captain is furious. We then see Arya get let out and walked over to a phone to make the call. She cries on the phone and says, "I made a terrible mistake and I need you." 6 hours earlier, Jackie is working in her office. As Arya comes in, Jackie asks, like, "Oh, are you looking for Mr. Fitz? This is the wrong floor." Arya walks up and hands her paper and the original version that she plagiarized off of. Jackie asks who else knows about this. Does Ezra know? Arya says no. Jackie asks what she wants, and Arya says, "I think you need to leave Hollis." Jackie says, and Arya then goes to leave and says, "Sorry I had to do this." Outside, Arya gets a call and sees that it's Fitz calling her. She declines the call and puts her phone away. 5 hours earlier, Emily asks if Hannah has a plan for what she's going to do at the wedding. Hannah's like, my dad left us for 2 years, and but you know what? I actually ended up forgiving him, and if I mess up again, he might be gone for good. Tom then enters the room, and Emily's like, "Okay, I'll see you at the wedding. I'll let you two talk." Hannah apologized for the night before. Tom's like, "Well, I'm sorry I put so much pressure on you with the toast." Tom says we can all find a way to get along. And Hannah says, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Tom says, "Your mom helped me realize I was avoiding commitment with Isabel. And I'm trying to break a habit of avoiding. And you know what? I really love her." Spencer and Toby sit in his car. Yeah. You're slimy, Tom. Spencer and Toby sit in his car. Toby says, "You're scaring me. You told me that you had something important to tell me, and you're not saying anything. What's going on?" Spencer says, "Once you hear what I have to say, you'll realize I'm not the person you think I am." Spencer says, "I lied to you about what my dad said." Toby says, "We've been in this together, and I don't understand why you lied." Spencer says, "There's so much that you don't know, and I can never tell you." Toby asks, "Don't you trust me?" And Spencer looks sad. Toby says, "I thought we felt the same way about each other." Spencer says, "I made a way to keep my secrets so that I don't get hurt, and and I don't want to let other people get hurt either, and you should find someone to be with." And she gets out of the car and runs away and goes to cry by a tree. Ren, who is coincidentally getting coffee and is going to get in his car, sees her from across the way. Predatory British men.
Suspicious.
Sucks. We'll get to that. Arya gets ready for the wedding as Ella walks in, and Ella says, "Wow, you look beautiful." Ella says, Mike, I spoke to Mike's therapist, and he's open to talking." Ella apologizes for asking Arya to lie. They have a nice conversation where they come to terms with both their mistakes. Arya's doorbell rings, so she goes to answer it. And who's at the door but Jackie? Arya asks what she's doing here, and Jackie says, finishing what you started. Arya closes the door and steps outside to talk to her. Jackie says, isn't it scary playing with fire? I should have never let him go. You and I are similar, Arya. We're not so different, you and I. We're both doing whatever it takes to keep him. I'm not going to leave Hollis, and Arya is going to leave Fitz, or else people will know all about them. And it'll be much easier for him to like go somewhere else in the land, but it will be harder for the girl who dated her teacher.
No, I think she was saying, but it's hard but it'll be hard for him to recover, like, reputation-wise from the student-teacher romance.
I thought she was insinuating that it'd be hard for Arya to be able to like cover.
I thought it was the other, that it was more of just like, it'll be an issue for him. Like, she's really just ruining Ezra's life.
Got it.
Like, Arya's a victim.
Right, completely. So, but I misread it because I thought she was saying that like Arya would be, and so then it would be like, oh, it's gonna be bad for him, but you're a girl, like you're a woman, so it's gonna be so much worse.
Oh no, I think, and then later she's like, yeah, like like. Because she's like, it'll hurt him more than me.
Right.
Because he's the one breaking the law. Because she's a child.
And was
I'm not saying Jackie's wrong. I'm just not loving how we got here.
No, I don't like her motivations.
No. Also because she's plagiarizing.
Yes. She's actually completely lifting like copy from somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
You had so much promise, Jackie.
We believed in you, Jackie.
Uh-huh. Emily is driving as her GPS tells her to make a right turn, which is actually away from the church, which is on her left. Emily is all confused by this, turns around and sees a doll in her backseat. She then grabs the doll, pulls the string, and it says, I'm taking you to her. Go alone. Emily then takes the right turn.
Are the dolls like attacked by Mickey Mouse?
We then cut back to the police station. The police are talking to reporters, and they do say, yes, it was an anonymous tip that led us to the suspects. That's it for now. Garrett then dismisses all the reporters. We then see the friends that are all in custody in the interrogation room, and Spencer is looking so angry and is dead-eye staring through at the mirror.
The two-way glass?
Uh-huh.
The one-way glass?
Exactly. And it's Wildon that happens to be directly on the other side. 4 hours earlier, Spencer talks to Ren back at her house as he fondly remembers like all the times he was back at his house, or at her house, sorry. Spencer thanks Ren for being there for her. Ren says maybe like you talked yourself out of that coffee too soon. And Spencer's like, well, like, or Ren then says, we all have baggage. And Spencer's like, well, even the construction worker had his work cut out for him with all the baggage I had. Like, he needed a forklift to move mine. Ren continues to flirt with her and helps put her scarf on for the wedding. Ren says, like, I've been desperate to kiss you. And Spencer says, like, I don't think that's a good idea. He says, I'm sure you're right, and kisses her. Ren says, I was dying to do that. And Spencer's like, well, you have terrible timing.
I love this accent.
Thank you. I'm like, I can't do the full British one, so I'm just going to do...
No, it's definitely not the British accent he has.
No, not at all. My interpretation. I'm reading for the part of Ren. Arya and Spencer are at the wedding, and Arya's like, I can't reach Emily like on my phone at all. And Spencer's like, well, like Hannah said that Emily left before her. They're both extremely worried about her. Hannah and Caleb are together, and they see Isabel and her dad looking happy, to which Hannah goes, he must like actually love her. Her phone rings and she walks away. Kate then steps up and tries to flirt with Caleb, and he dresses her down very skillfully. Hannah then sees that she gets a text, and it's a text from A that says she's about to run out of air. Emily then arrives at a barn, which is the end of the GPS coordinates. Back to the wedding ceremony, which is now in progress. Hannah is freaking out and mouths to Spencer if they've heard from Emily. Spencer says no. Hannah then interrupts and is like, hey, Isabel, can we like talk for a moment? And it's like really awkward in the chapel. And then Tom says, "Hey, can it wait?" And Hannah says, "It can't." Isabel's like, "Well, we can go talk in the side room." So they go over there. And Isabel's like, what is this about? Hannah, or we then cut to Spencer and Arya. They're like, I think Hannah's going to need a getaway car. So they both leave out the front. Hannah then tells Isabel that when her dad was visiting them, that Tom slept with Ashley. And Isabel then is just like, "Is this true?" And we see that Tom had entered the room into the back. He nods yes. She's upset and goes and closes the door to the bathroom. Hannah then says she's sorry as Tom walks away. Hannah then gets a text from A that says 457 Grover Road. Emily walks around the barn asking for Dr. Sullivan. Emily opens the barn to see a car with the engine running. Emily circles the car, like trying to look inside, and tries the handle, but then it's like locked. The barn door then suddenly shuts, and Emily tries to find a way out, but can't. To which I said, "You just got to do whatever you got to do to break that like window. I would take off my shoe and I would immediately start banging on that car window."
You really have a lot of faith in high heels bought in 2011.
If life or death situation, you gotta use your tools.
Depending on, are those wet seal heels, or are they from like somewhere a little nicer? Are they going to actually go through the window, or are they going to crumble in your hand?
Just like crack in half. We then cut to the police station, and the police chief is addressing Toby and is like, "Boy, you need to go home." And Toby then is like, "I'm not your boy and I need to be here." Toby then sees Spencer being led away from the police, and he's like, "Spencer, I don't care what you can't tell me. I love you. Do you hear me? I love you," as Spencer gets led away. Our heart breaks. 3 hours earlier, I know. Emily is lying down, passed out in the barn. A figure comes in and drags her away. Emily then wakes up in the woods and sees Allie looking over her. Allison says, "It's okay, you're with me now. It's so good to see you, Emily. I think I missed you the most." She says, "I never told you this, but you were always my favorite. No one ever loved me as much as you did." Emily asks, is this what dying is? And Allison says, we both want you to be free of A. Emily asks if Allison knows who A is. Allison says, "Of course." Emily says, "Well, you should tell me." And Allie says, "I don't think that's a good idea. Only two can keep a secret if one of them is dead." Hey, it's like from the theme song.
Mm-hmm.
You can either stay here with me, or you can either stay here or come with me. Emily then looks at her, and Allison says, "Oh, sweet Emily," and kisses her. Emily then wakes up in the same spot to see that her friends are looking over. As she gets reoriented. They then ask if she's seen Dr. Sullivan, and Allison's like, "No, I saw Allison."
Emily's
"No,
I saw Allison."
Emily says, "No, I saw Allison." Back at the police station, Emily then gets brought into the interrogation room, so we can all stop wondering where Emily was. They all ask how she's doing, and Emily says, "I didn't say a word to anyone. The doctors gave her some oxygen, and she's fine." The Hastings are at the police station. They demand to speak to their daughter, but they can't. Jason then walks in as Peter rushes up to him to confront him and is like, hey, you shouldn't be here. You need to stay away." Jason says, "I think my sister would want me here." Peter says, "It's not just about you. I did things to protect you that you don't even know about." Jason says, "I know about the will, and I didn't kill Allison." Garrett kind of oversees their conversation from far away and is watching them. Peter says, "I've watched you grow up, and I know about, I've watched you grow up. I know about what you've been through. And, I wanted to be truthful with you last night because I thought it would help." Jason says, "I knew what I'd find. Why do you think, I had bought the house? Allison was good at keeping secrets, but she was also good at punishing people with the truth." Jason asks if Mrs. Hastings knows, and Peter says no, and she's not going to find out tonight. We then see Garrett overseeing them again. But then we get a POV shot of someone arriving and Garrett turning to them and says, "You shouldn't be here." 2 hours earlier, Emily notices that the shovel that is now in front of the barn, like on the barn door, wasn't there before. Spencer grabs it and sees there are latitude and longitude coordinates listed on it. They think that A buried Dr. Sullivan alive, and they need to go to that spot. And as they get there, they kind of see nothing there. Hannah then finally sees like a little yellow plastic thing sticking up out of the ground. Hannah gets a text from A that says, "She's still alive, bitches. Start digging." The friends all start digging with their hands and first uncover boots. But then suddenly a mannequin mask. Arya recoils at this mask and is like, "What the hell?" Suddenly a helicopter appears overhead and the police come rushing out as they realize they were set up. Mrs. Hastings is in the interrogation room with the girls as all the other parents are outside. Fitz arrives at the police station and Byron is just like, "What is Mr. Fitz doing here?" And Ella's like, "Wait 1 minute." Ella goes up and approaches him. She says, "I know why you're here. It's a small town. People see things and they talk. I thought," it's like, "You know what? I thought you were an outstanding teacher." Fitz is like, "I'm in love with her." Ella says, "I'm going to give you one chance to leave. Not because you deserve it, but because we have enough to deal with right now. If Spencer's parents find out, you'll be in like really deep trouble." To which Fitz gives a really puzzled look back. Oh, okay. So this is also when I found out Mrs. Hastings' name for the first time.
You didn't know Veronica's name?
Nope. So then suddenly my notes go Veronica, and I was like, "Who's that?" Veronica explains that Wildon was only suspended. He wasn't fired from the police force, but is now a chief officer in the investigation and has the evidence to back up his allegations. And they must be significant or else the girls wouldn't all be there. We then cut to a different interrogation room. Garrett and Jenna are in there. Jenna is like, "I wish I could see their faces right now." She then asks Garrett if he's ready to give up his job for all this, and he's like, "I can't wait to get out of this ridiculous uniform," but like he wants to wait until after tonight. Jenna says like, "Oh, you're better like waiting than I am." Garrett says, "I just can't wait to get into that storage locker." Jenna asks if he's still worried about Jason. Garrett says, "You know, he knows, but he knows that he didn't kill Allison, but he doesn't know that we wrote the note." Jenna says, "And we're getting away with it." Wildon says Allison was hit hard enough to cave in her skull, and until tonight, we didn't know who did it. He then puts the shovel down on the table and is like, "We always knew what the murder weapon was all along, and tonight we caught you with it." Garrett hands Jenna a note to take home, and he says, "Burn it." Jenna asks if it's page 5. Garrett says, "It's over, Jenna. There's nothing else to link us to that night." Jenna says, "You know what? She deserved to die like that." We then get a POV shot at a diner. Dr. Sullivan sits alone as the person comes and sits at the table. Dr. Sullivan looks angry. She says, "I've done everything you asked me to do," and then a gloved hand slides over an envelope. Dr. Sullivan takes it and leaves the gloved hand there sitting alone. The gloved hand then flips over a coffee mug as a waitress comes over and goes, "How you doing tonight, pretty eyes? Would you like a slice of pie?" The end.
So, many
big
questions.
Things.
Why is Wildon here?
We had to bring him back because it sounds like we're going to have, I'm assuming by the time we like catch back up, Garrett's going to be missing. So now we got to have our cop back in here to be able to antagonize them. And, you know, it's like full circle back because he always thought they were guilty. So then now they've been officially caught with the murder weapon. And, oh, isn't that convenient? So now Wildon's going to be our main antagonist yet again. I'm curious if I kind of hope they don't. I'm hoping they don't touch any of that Ashley, Marin, or any of that like situation with Wildon again. I'm really hoping that we don't have to go through that retread.
I have no memories of that in this season, at least.
Good.
Nothing.
I love it.
That doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
Right.
Remember, I thought Sean was only in 2 episodes.
Fair enough.
My memory's not good.
Well, forgetting Sean is a little different, you know.
Who?
Exactly.
Why is Tom marrying Isabella if he cheated on her?
Right, exactly. Well, Tom's just a slimy ass dude. And this
Hannah's like, I forgave him even though he's gone for 2 years. And I was like, baby girl, don't.
I know, you really don't have to. Like, Granny was right.
Cut him out.
You didn't have to go to that toast. You don't have to do any of that.
Yeah, you shouldn't have gone.
Yeah, he's just a slimy dude. So he's like, no, the cheating on her cleared my head.
Mm-hmm.
I now realize I love this person. Horrible. No, Tom's the worst. But also, I mentioned this to you last night that Arya is. There's at least a positive there in terms of like what A has them do, but Hannah's is by far just like clean and clear. Like,
yep.
You should totally do this. This is like totally like just in a certain sense. Because obviously Isabel didn't know.
Yeah.
I mean, she got really put through the ringer to do that. But
why does Spencer think the only way to keep Toby safe is by breaking up with him?
I don't know. I hate this trope. It's the horrible trope. This is we're gonna look up. When did Twilight New Moon come out? 2009. This is Twilight New Moon all over again.
Well, the book was out before the movie, honey.
Oh, right. That's true. That's based on a book series. But it's the exact same thing. It was, that's my one that I can think of off the top of my head of like a prime example of like, no, I need to leave because if you're too close to me, then I'm putting you in danger. And that's
also,
like my least favorite trope in fiction.
Okay, but also like the Twilight, just briefly, like he was cold.
Right.
He was always physically cold and hard. The only redeeming quality that man had was that he was glittery.
Mm-hmm.
But like, take the werewolf, babe.
Right.
He's warm.
Exactly.
He's fuzzy. He turns into basically a dog.
Mm-hmm. And like his family seems pretty cool too.
Yeah. And he's got a really he teaches you about his culture and his life, and he really likes you. And I mean, I'm just saying, I think I would have ended up with Jacob.
Right. So don't come in our comments because we're right. Me, who's seen one Twilight movie and it's New Moon.
Have you read any of the books?
No, I've read none of the books.
Oh, I read all the books.
Oh my god. So
the last one's really bad.
Spoilers for Twilight. If you don't I will mark it as a chapter. So just jump ahead to a different chapter if you don't.
The Twilight Saga.
Exactly. So bananas that like they have sex once. Bella gets pregnant and then has a. So this is far. Tell me if I'm wrong. Has a baby super fast because that's how like vampire babies are born. They like age super rapidly, and then Jacob imprints on the baby, so it'll be like he'll be like the baby's like connected to it for life. Bananas. You can't do that.
Yeah, the whole thing, like, I think the reason why she's able to get pregnant is because she wasn't a vampire yet, but then they have to turn her into a vampire while she's having the baby.
That's what it is.
I think that's what it is.
Yes, I definitely remember hearing that.
It's been well over.
It's so she doesn't die in childbirth.
A decade and a half since I last read. I only read the last book once, and then I gave my copy to one of my friends who liked it because I was like, "This is the worst thing I've ever read."
Horrible. It's like really, it's really showing the.
But the first
Mormon,
like 3 ones were all right. I mean,
it's really showing that the Mormon is coming out of Stephanie Meyer's there.
Mm-hmm.
Good God.
We must repopulate.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, but this is like purely. This is not. Yeah, Bella doesn't get to enjoy like a physical relationship with, Edward. She is immediately procreating
until. I mean, I assume once they're vampires, then they can go at it. Right,
but it's just like they have sex and then she has a baby.
That's why I'll stick to my fairy porn, my ACOTAR.
Oh yeah, the ACOTAR books. Okay, but
everyone gets to have pleasure in those books.
Exactly. I love to hear it. But what were we on before we got sidetracked? Because I think
Toby, the leaving, the I have to leave you to protect you trope.
It's stupid. I hate it. Because it's just like you get this manufactured thing where it's just like I have to protect them and it never feels earned and you're just like waiting. You just want people to talk.
Well,
it's people not talking.
Like, it infantilizes the partner.
Yes.
Because it's like, oh, I don't trust you to be able to handle all of me.
Right, exactly. And it's just people not communicating and connecting, and that's so infuriating to watch in a show. It's just like, you just need to talk about your feelings.
Talk about your feelings. Everybody, if you could take one thing from this episode, talk about your feelings.
Right. And that may not happen in real life, but we're talking about like movies and things like that. This is like part of the thing. It's like, communicate your message of like what you're trying to write about. Just have people talk. If I could impart anything to movies, people should talk. And this show's usually pretty good about that. So that's why it's like, God damn it. And then
oh, go ahead.
Is it related to the Spencer?
Go ahead. No.
Have her run directly into Ren makes it just okay. Yeah, it's just like just dropping an anvil on my head or something, just making a fool out of me for shipping this Toby for Spoby.
You still have faith in Spoby, honey?
Yeah, it'll come back around.
Okay.
For sure. Which this is like what I was dreading, is like the moments that they weren't going to be together. It's like, I'm just going to be waiting. But I knew it was going to be Spencer that broke it off. For the stupidest reason. I hate it. Just talk. You've been doing spy shit. Ren.
She doesn't leave him for Ren. She just runs into Ren.
Yeah, but then it's just like, then he kisses her, so then that makes it all complicated.
But she didn't want to kiss him back. She didn't look excited about that.
No, it's these older men.
Creeps.
Jason, Ren.
Creeps.
Stop it. You gotta wait. I'm just dying to kiss you. Is she dying to kiss you back? I don't think so.
Go ahead and die.
I don't know how they do it in England.
Snogging.
Exactly. It'd be so amazing if he was just like, I've been dying to snog you. God. But I hate it. I hate it.
Okay, let's go.
Us Spoby, and shippers are just, we're down bad.
It's okay, honey. Not
in the like interested sense, and then we're going through a rough patch.
You're gonna have to be prepared for that for this show.
Yeah,
for everyone.
I knew it was coming. Because this is what these shows are, and I'm like, there's 7 seasons. They can't be together for 7 seasons. Impossible. What will they write about?
I can promise you this: he'll always be in your heart.
Good. He's pretty great. I mean, you get him yelling in the police station. That scene is great. Him telling the chief, "I'm not your boy." Again, I want to stand up and cheer. I want to applaud.
Okay. Speaking of other things you hate, what about Jackie? Villainization of Jackie?
No.
I was really hoping she'd be like, I'm doing this for your own good. If you don't break up with them. Yes.
That would have been so much better. A lot of communicating with hands today because that's how upset I am. It would have been so much better because then think about how it would have been if Jackie was like, how betrayed she would feel of Arya coming and being like I have secrets on you now, like you need to like back off, and Jackie was being like, I tried to help you. Like how caught off guard, like how much better that would be of like then Jackie being like backed into a corner where I have to protect myself because of this mistake.
I want him,
right?
Unless you think that's an act.
No, but it'd be nice if it was. Here's hoping, but I'm not getting my hopes up because it's so stupid that it is instead like women fighting over a man.
Ezra of all people.
Exactly. And it was like, we had that glimpse of like, I'm trying to protect this girl that I see as vulnerable. But no, I think this will actually play into, we'll come back around on like this like model of like what I think the show is saying. Back around into Theory Corner, it plays into that. But and I could be wrong, but what I think the show is going is just like an extrapolation of like girl on girl hate crime, of like that the world and men are awful to girls and women and make them vulnerable, but the people that can exploit that the best are girls and women. And I think there's some kernel of truth in that. I think that plays out in some bad ways of like fighting over a man.
Yeah, I think the hurt is worse when it comes from a woman, but I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, well,
you don't want them to be the blame.
Totally. And so that's like, and I don't think it's like necessarily doing that because none of the men are like scot-free at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's like maybe potentially exposing that like fear of like how women can potentially be able to get under like the women's skin.
Definitely.
In like a broad sense, which I think is fraught in its own way of being maybe like stereotypical of like how women interact with other women,
which is hilarious to me because as someone who works with people and in the people fields and with people, men tend to be more drama.
Right, exactly.
If you're gonna stereotype at all,
right. I think that works for this situation. If potentially some of my theories are correct, that could work into a wider situation. So I don't want to cast this as a wide net as we're still kind of like going through this, but I think you kind of get that with like how calculated to even a more nth degree than like Allison is. Like women or men will like use violence and like try and like extort you, like say sexually in that way, while women are like calculated and conniving.
Women are manipulative and men are strategic.
Right.
That's it's even in the language we use.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So it's something that noodling around in my head that like TBD if it like fully pans out because we're still in the middle of it, but it was something that popped to mind today.
We shall see. Okay. Is Allie alive or was it a hallucination?
Allie, I'm gonna go with Allie is alive, but that was not Allison.
Okay. Allie is alive, but that was not
Allison. Yes, okay. I think we will get at some point in the future. Two separate ideas.
Okay.
We're in a soap opera. She's alive. That's what I think. Like totally. But this is a completely separate thing of like, just like how Hannah saw Allison. It's like an extension of like their own thoughts and feelings.
Okay.
And so like Emily seeing her is like, in a way like of like making peace with like Allison. Like
then
seeing
who
Allison.
Pulled her out?
So I had originally thought it was the friends, but without that, we'll save that one.
Okay.
We got a little theory.
Who/what did they dig up?
Yeah, I'm assuming it was just like a mannequin or body, not an actual body, like a like plastic figure of some sort, because they don't, or it could have not even been that. It could have literally been Dr. Sullivan's boots, a mask, and like some other clothes thrown in there, because we don't get a resolution on that. Like, it just seems like they find it and then it go like, wait, what the hell? And the police arrest him. So it doesn't seem like it's like at least factoring in yet to the police investigation. Like it's not a big enough thing it's not an actual human. It's not human remains.
So then did Jenna and Garrett set all of that up and not A? Or did A take Dr. Sullivan, but Jenna and Garrett set that up?
Yeah, that's what I'm having a hard time like parsing like who did what, because it does seem like Garrett and Jenna in that instance for them to be able to arrive that fast. And was because I don't think Garrett and Jenna know all those things to set up all the dolls. But I don't know if they like A knows all that, and I don't think Garrett and Jenna, either of them, are A. But I guess they could have done that. That's the only way it makes sense, but I don't think that's right. At least with the materials we have now, I think they did probably set it up, but I don't. Yeah.
Or did A help them set it up?
I think they're working. There's two separate paths there between A and Garrett and Jenna. I think A, in my theory, is the one that pulled Emily out. So I guess that would maybe make more sense if Garrett and Jenna did set up this wild goose chase, and then A is like unraveling this because A wouldn't actually do that to them. But I don't think Garrett and Jenna know all about like. I don't know if they. I guess Jenna would maybe know about Fitz, and she would be. Now I'm starting to talk myself more into this. And that like Jenna, she would know about all the rest of the stuff. Like, it's not inconceivable. Oh, yeah. Maybe it was Garrett and Jenna. And that Jenna, and that it could be Garrett in that last scene with Dr. Sullivan handing her whatever. Who better than the police to, like, hold something over you? All right. I like that theory. But I don't think it was A then.
Okay, so then...
yeah, I'm really talking myself into a theory of just, like, literally on the spot. So, you know, take that with a grain of salt.
Let's take your theories then and head into Theory Corner.
I was wondering, there might have been something else I wanted to bring up before we jumped directly into there. Oh. Yeah, we'll go. We got big theory corner, so we are going to step into Theory Corner. Brenton's Theory Corner, where we are going to broaden our scope to cover more theories around Rosewood rather than just A. We shall start with Peter and Jason. What are they up to, you might be asking? Why is Peter like shepherding so much over Jason, hovering around him, like trying to like protect him? Jason is son. Jason is his son. His son? Jason is son.
I was like, what?
Jason is his son.
I was like, I knew your theory because you told me last night, but I feel like I don't know what
you're like, what the hell are you talking about?
Jason is Peter's son?
Yes, is Peter's son. And so that's why Peter is like, I've watched you since I was a boy.
Since he was a boy.
Good Lord.
Peter's got some weird memories.
I'm actually younger than you.
Good God.
Okay, so Peter has watched Jason since Jason was a boy, and Jason is son, as established. Good God. All right, and so then, it's part of that same like tryst that I was talking about with Mrs. De Laurentiis, and so Peter has always kept an eye on him. It could even be why they live so close together. To keep an eye on his illegitimate son. And Allison found out and was going to use that to get Jason written out of the will. Mm-hmm. So that's why Jason was written out of the will. Cue everything that we heard about Peter saying from last episode. And so Jason was digging for something at the house, which Peter knows something is buried in the floorboards there. So goes to like talk to Jason and tell him the truth. So hopefully that Jason will like back off of like whatever he's doing and like stay safe so none of this comes to light. Because Peter, while he is protecting Jason, he is right that he is also protecting himself and the rest of his family.
Okay.
Because he doesn't want his wife to find out, who we now know is named Veronica.
So if Jason's his son, so his and Mrs. De Laurentiis.
Yep.
Is Allison his?
No.
Okay.
Just Jason. Because Allison doesn't factor in at all to like Peter watching them yet, okay. As far as we know. Which it totally could be, but I don't think so at the moment. Because then, why would Allison use that against him? So maybe Jason found some sort of family heirloom, like Allison was saying last episode, that like relates that back to Peter. And so Jason, as far as we know, still Black Hoodie. Still trying to find out the truth. Okay. And so on that night, we now know that Garrett and Jenna slipped a note to Jason so that Jason would think that he potentially murdered someone, and they're putting cover for the real murderer, because I don't think it's either of them either. They sound like they saw how she died, but they didn't save her. That's my theory, at least.
Okay.
That they don't have anything directly to do with the murder, but they like saw it go down and then like put cover on Jason.
Why would they protect the murderer?
I know. I can't figure that out either.
Okay.
I could just be needlessly complicating things, and like Garrett like killed like Allison.
Okay.
Which that could totally be true. But two working theories on what they'd be doing there. And so then that means neither of them is A. I still think that A is, some sort of antagonistic force trying to find out and like get justice for Allison. My world was rocked this episode.
Okay.
With the reintroduction of Maya, and in that same scene where Emily is talking on the phone with Dr. Sullivan, and we get just Maya kind of eyeing her in the background, and I go, who's been off screen this entire time? Who do we not know any of their movements that they could have been leaving the camp, coming and watching them? Maya. My new prevailing theory that I've completely worked myself into is that Maya is A, and that has been orchestrating all this. And again, like, we don't know because she's been at camp, like when she left camp, when she did leave camp, she even moved into Allison's house. Like, so she's obviously like connected and very interested in Allison, and has like some motive for getting back at the friends. Now, what I'm really, really worried about is that this is going to be the queer character is erratic, wild, like out of her mind sort of thing, and that's like the conclusion of like what A is in some ways. I really hope that doesn't happen. I'm really scared that will happen. That was the other thing that like crossed my mind. I'm like, are they going to do that? Which is a really bad trope.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully they don't, and that she was maybe just connected to Allison in some other way.
I think you'll like where it goes.
Okay, so we're maybe
most of your fears, I believe, no promises, are unfounded.
Okay.
Like in terms of the Lucas one too.
That's good. And then so this works into my theory of like that I was mentioning earlier of like women being the most dangerous to women, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
At least like in calculated in that way. I think it's maybe the show's overall message is more quite like since it is kind of like, say, leaning into that horror, and it's like of like cooperation between women and things like that, and here's like the damage we can do to each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, like, okay, this is a model then to think through that A would be a woman, because who else? Because these men like are not quite that same sort of calculated, conniving sort of thing. So then it would still lend credence to Melissa being A. Melissa also still being off screen. I was wrong about Melissa writing the note. Don't cop to that here. Everything else is correct. And because like Melissa's still moving about off screen. That's and is still connected to the NAT club and all those people.
Mm-hmm.
And like something could have happened like with Allison, that like Allison found out about something, or that maybe Melissa feels guilty over how it ended with Allison and needs to in some way like repair that. But then we also have our men off screen that we don't know much about. Fitz, what the hell are you doing? Lucas, again, I don't want that to come to pass, but it could. Noel, but Noel is Noel. I don't think he's that conniving and that crafty. I think he's just kind of a mischievous little imp. Who's taller than Fitz.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are my big two A theories coming out of this episode. But the one thing I feel like dead certain on, that I will 100% egg on my face is Jason, his son.
Chasing his son.
Thank you.
Any other theories before you go?
I think that's it. I think that's the
what about Kate? No.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
She's just playing games.
She's just the worst in multiple ways. As in, I don't care about this.
Any other potential A theories?
No, I think, always Allison's still alive and is exacting revenge. I think Allison is just still alive somewhere, though. I don't think Allison's A.
Okay.
And all this theories and things is just for the upcoming A.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who knows what the model will be going forward for the show? They might not change the writing, but they might have new ways of how they're going about things. So are my answers
in terms of calming your fears, because it's hard for me to remember things.
Yeah, no problem. All right, I think that's it then. Thank you all for coming to an extended Theory Corner. Goodbye.
I'm so excited for when we finally start getting some good stuff on this.
I mean, it'll be pretty soon, right?
I mean, we're halfway through this season. I believe the reveal is in the finale.
Wild. Damn. Yeah. Okay. And this one's an extra long season. That's why it makes sense. It didn't click in my head that the mid-season finale, of course, could be 12 because it's 25 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm eager to learn more. These were invigorating episodes.
Yeah, isn't it rude that they only put the good ones right before the end of the season?
That's how it works. I'm glad. I just find it so funny that, again, Caleb's just back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's maybe this won't be such a dead end in the future. Who knows?
He's never far. Caleb's never far.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Except for when...
Caleb, again, you can still throw on the list.
There is a point where Caleb is temporarily far.
Oh.
But he comes back.
Okay. That's good.
He always comes back. Caleb always comes back.
Just like the cat.
Exactly. All right. Well, anything else? Final thoughts.
Yeah. I feel reinvigorated by these episodes.
Good.
After last week's semi-downer ones, but half that stuff didn't even stick anyway. People were probably just keep watching.
Mm-hmm.
It'll all work itself out.
It all works itself out.
Yeah. So I think that's it for me.
All right. Well, shall we plug?
Yes.
When I'm not here doing this with Brenton, sometimes I'm helping people with getting their shit together. That's basically what I do as a life and career coach. You can find all my details in my Linktree, which Brenton will link in all of the descriptions or details or whatever, depending on where you're listening or watching this through. I also started a TikTok for book talk because I wanted to join book talk, but I didn't want it to interfere with my coaching feed because I don't know if you've ever gotten too deep in a niche and now your feed is all the same thing all the time and it's just all about work and you already work during the day, so you don't want to keep watching TikToks about work. So I needed a new account. So I started a book talk and the username for it is @playingwithpros. So if you want to listen to me ramble about books, specifically lately the ACOTAR series, because that's what triggered this whole thing, I'm there. I'm also open to other recommendations of other fantasy books because now I'm in deep.
Yeah, I was going to mention you bring that up. And then people should also look out for other content coming from you in the future.
Yes. I'll have a video and a blog coming on my But Really Though platforms for the book series as well.
Yeah.
And then, maybe I'll write things and maybe one day, if you're really lucky, I'll share fiction with you instead of nonfiction. But I'm very shy about my fiction.
Yeah.
I'm very not shy about my nonfiction. You can critique me to the ends of the earth and I do not care. But when it's fiction, I'm like, that's my baby.
Exactly. I completely understand it.
It's not real and it's very fragile.
Mm-hmm. So there you go. There's incentives to go seek out Emily's stuff.
Besides the fact that I'm just oodles of fun.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's
even though I haven't been posting on TikTok for a while.
Right. There's you get a little bit of both. Both positives.
All positives.
That's right.
Posy vibes, baby. Just kidding. We are not those kind of people.
Hashtag
good vibes only.
Exactly.
I have a blog post about toxic positivity, so
read up on that. You can find the audio version of this podcast on all your podcast platforms of choice. The audio version or the video version on YouTube at Dead Ends. You can also email us deadendspcast@gmail.com. Write to us about whatever you want about the series.
But don't spoil anything.
Please don't.
Or else I'll throw a fit because I have to keep my mouth shut all the time, and it's really hard. And if one of you gremlins do it,
I would love to be completely surprised going into these reveals.
You're going to be spooked.
Exactly. And you can also now find us on Twitter at, I believe, Dead Ends Podcast. Yes, Dead Ends Podcast. I don't think full transparency. Like, I'm not super big on like interacting a bunch on Twitter. Like, so at least at the moment, will be a good way to find out where new episodes are out and if there's any updates to recording changes and things like that. This is just kind of prompted because I was like, we've been tired lately. Like, so if it does ever come to that point where we need to skip a week, like, how would we message that out? Mm-hmm. That would be through the Twitter. So you can follow that there for all the updates. I just started it. So, yeah, go check it out there if you want to just keep updated on the podcast and things. But yeah, I think that is all the plugs then.
All right.
Cool.
Well then,
we're still here. We're going to find out everything very soon.
You know nothing.
I absolutely know nothing.
Well, and some of the things we're not going to know for a long time.
I have my theories and they are foolproof.
Uh-huh.